Yes, I can. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP at Westminster, has a major problem. Well, he has many, but this is the latest in his major problems. And that is that at least two of that cohort of MPs completely disagree with him on policy. They don't like the direction he is trying to take the group. He, of course, is trying to get on with the day-to-day stuff of running a country, whereas they want every decision, every day, to be all about independence. They are obsessed and focused only on that, to the detriment of everything else that they can do. And this is why Scotland is in a mess, because they're all like that. No one wants to get on and do the job. And so who are these two pugnacious tits? Well, of course, it's the usual crowd, isn't it? It's Angus MacNeil and it's Pete Wishart. Two greater tossers you couldn't wish to meet up a dark alley. So let's have a look to see what is girding their loins so much that they feel they need to object to their party's leader in the Westminster group, and to see if this is just another blowing in the wind, or is it a full-scale hurricane that will completely rip that group apart. Well, you can hope, can't you? Let's have a look. So Stephen Flynn faces mutiny as two veteran SNP MPs blast his election strategy, which is light on Skexit. That's because Stephen Flynn is aware, as are many people, even within the SNP, that independence is not the priority for most Scots. Most Scots just want the party to get on and do their damn job, which of course they're quite incapable of doing. One only has to look at the leader to see that. But anyway, the SNP Westminster leader announced his party's strategy for the next general election, but it's not gone down well among some nationalists, including Angus MacNeil and Pete Wishart, two of the most obnoxious tosspots you could ever meet. That one on the left especially. All he can think about is independence. It's 24 hours a day, complete obsession. And he even regurgitates failed policies in the hope that, hey, promise me this time they'll work. Come on. So anyway, SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn is facing a mutiny in his own camp, as his much derided plans for the next general election were panned by two of his veteran MPs. Of course, his plan was to go begging to the Lib Dems and Labour, saying, please, can we have some votes? We haven't got enough support. We want some of your votes. And of course, the Labour and the Lib Dems aren't nationalist parties. And so they've told him to go boil his head. And of course, the main problem he's got as well is that none of them, if they got in and they required the SNP to prop them up as government, could afford to have that independence referendum, because if they lost them, they'd immediately fail. They'd immediately cease to be the party of government. They don't realise this. The SNP is too stupid to see the fundamental flaw in going into a relationship and propping up a government that could not ever give them independence. But then you don't expect much from them. Anyway, the Aberdeen South MP, this will be Flynn, introduced his new strategy, which involves begging Labour and Lib Dem supporters for their votes in what he says is a bid to shut the Tories out of number 10. But that won't work. There's so few Scottish Tories, it doesn't make any difference. It's Labour he needs to be fearing, because it'll be Labour likely to form the next government. Anyway, this has fallen foul of two long-serving national... too long. That's a wrong kind of two. That's TWH. Should be two TOO. Too long-serving. But anyway, two long-serving nationalist politicians, Pete Wishart and Angus MacNeil, who want to resurrect Nicola Sturgeon's Act's plan to run the next election as a de facto referendum. Of course, it's never such a thing as a de facto referendum unless it actually is a referendum, and you can call it what you like. It has no legal basis either in British or international law, and that is why it was abandoned by Sturgeon, because she knew that it was pointless doing it. But these people are too stupid to realise that, even when told. Mr. Flynn has struggled to keep his cohort in line because he's not a leader either. And anyway, since ousting Ian Blackford as leader of the Westminster Group, and has caused even more divide by launching his strategy on the front page of the pro-Skexit newspaper, The National, which is a rag. I do occasionally lift stories from there, but it's simply because they're often amusing. they'll push something as being wonderful and virtuous, and then when you look at it, you realise it's actually a bit of a pig's breakfast. But anyway, instead of focusing his attention on nationalist voters, amid a massive slump in the polls, he decided to target Lib Dem and Labour voters by asking them to lend the SNP their support. I think the term they need is begging, on bended knee, desperate. You see, the thing is, and I've said this before in a video earlier, that he would be one of those that is likely to lose his seat, and he hasn't got any other transferable skills. What can he possibly do? He'd be unemployed and unemployable. With his colleague Alan Smith got in on the act by demanding that Labour roll back Brexit if they wanted the support of the nationalists in a hung parliament. Brexit is now a done deal with Labour. They have no policy on rolling that back because they know it's a non-starter. But other members of the obviously disgruntled group have spoken out against this strategy, instead urging the party to focus on independence and stop making promises they can't keep. I'm sorry, but making promises on independence is a promise you can't keep because the majority of Scotland don't want it. And that's why you could actually give the independence lot, you can give them their referendum and they'd still lose, but then they wouldn't accept that result because, invent some reason, probably involving Westminster or the English, and then say we demand a third referendum and we demand a referendum every week until we finally get what we want. They're never going to get what they want because the people of Scotland generally aren't stupid. Perth and North Perthshire MP Mr Wishart posted an image of the national front page, you have to be careful the way you say that, which read, "Lend us your votes to lock out Tories," and wrote, "Fair enough, but I prefer give us your votes to secure independence. I think other parties ought to be up there, give us your votes to lock out the SNP and do some good for Scotland." He wrote a blog last week where he admitted that the independence referendum was dead and that his party should instead be focusing on winning a Skexit majority and demanding to break up the UK. You can demand all you like, but you won't do it because it doesn't matter if you have a majority at Parliament. That is not the majority of Scots. And until you have that majority of Scots on your side, you're never going to get independence. But his boss's policy is to instead demand a Section 30 for permission to hold a second vote, and then a third, and then a fourth, and so on, which the last three Prime Ministers have all rejected, and Sir Keir Starmer is expected to do the same. As I said many times, Sir Keir Starmer will not give them independence, or not give them a referendum on independence. He does not want to be seen as the man who broke up the United Kingdom. No Prime Minister ever will give that. And it is just one of those things they have to grow up and accept. But of course they're incapable. The Western Isles MP Angus MacNeil also hit out his colleague's plan as he highlighted that any plea to unionist parties for a referendum would just be rejected again. And it will. That deja feeling all over again, but we cannot control or accurately guess outcomes of any election in England and Wales. All that is in SNP's control is in our manifesto, asking the people directly on independence. Well, ask them. You need to get your referendum, your once-in-a-generation referendum. You've only got another 15 years to go, maybe. You'll get your referendum in 15 years, but I guarantee you'll lose that as well. He said, "Man, are we back at the Nicola 2019 policy? There won't be a referendum. If Labour Tory in majority say no. If hung Parliament, they need Scots seats to stay in power. So again, no. Elections are only route to independence." I don't know what words he's using, but it certainly isn't English. Hamza Yousaf is expected to pause his party's race to break up the UK as he builds grassroots support instead. He can't build grassroots support. The SNP are losing everything. They're going to lose their seats at the next election, general and Scottish. It's going to be a bloodbath, and it's going to be fun to watch. The SNP were meant to debate how best to get independence at a specially convened summit in March, but this was axed due to the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon and lack of interest from the majority of Scots. And I shall round off and come up, and we shall see the end of the video. It seems that up and down and every part of the SNP there are divisions, and everyone who pretends to be some kind of leader isn't. Obviously, everyone is back chatting Humza Yousaf. He has no authority whatsoever. They keep gainsaying him, contradicting him. Everyone's telling him that he's taking the wrong policy here, or they're just going off and doing their own thing. He has no authority. He has no power. But even at Westminster, the so-called leader there, Stephen Flynn, is similarly bedraggled and dragged. He has got no authority or power either. No one is giving him respect. And that's because they're a fairly disrespectful lot. And very few of them have got the authority that would naturally come. And that is why, I mean, I keep saying it, but terrible as she was, Nicola Sturgeon, she did rule with an iron rod. And no one else knows where she's left it. They're a bunch of recalcitrant schoolboys fighting the good fight and mucking around like it's playtime in the schoolyard. And it's great, and it splits the party, and it just goes to show how useless they are. And if hopefully even some of their own supporters just see how bad they are and give up and say, do you know what, I've had enough, and walk away. It'll be magnificent, won't it? And I think a lot of them have, and I think a lot more will. So it'll be one of those things that will just drip, drip, drip over time, and it will just course away until eventually they become but a sad memory. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Definitely leave a like. That's the big important one for us all. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. Don't gainsay the leadership of the SNP because there's a hell of a queue and you haven't got time to queue up to do it. And until next time, goodbye.